fucking head would spin. I'd forget where I was, not make any sense. I would say 2 jokes and then I'd be like, oh my God, I don't know what's coming next. And
6 hours before his stand-up comedy show, Adam Sandler, known to be one of Hollywood's calmest and funniest actors, had his head spinning after a private interaction with a fellow actor that landed harder than any insult delivered on stage. The actor had done something with enough force to knock Sandler off balance, not physically, but mentally. For someone who built a career on turning pain into comedy, he swore not to ever forgive, and now he is finally opening up and has called out 7 actors he hated the most, with details of what really happened. Sandler's retaliation to what number 2 actor did to him needs the attention of law enforcement agencies. Counting down from number 7, Bill Murray.
We definitely, we were a little scared of him. We didn't want to make him upset.
In 1990, at just 24 years old, Sandler got hired on Saturday Night Live, stepping into a world that was as intimidating as it was electrifying. He was young, unpolished, and bursting with a strange brand of humor that didn't fit neatly into Hollywood's established boxes. While some saw potential, others saw disruption. And among those who never warmed to him was Bill Murray. At the time, Murray was already a legend, respected, unpredictable, and feared in equal measure. His opinions carried weight, and his disapproval could quietly stain a reputation. From Sandler's earliest rise, there were signs of friction. Murray reportedly dismissed Sandler's comedic style as juvenile, the kind of humor that drew laughs but lacked depth. What might have remained a difference in taste slowly turned into something more corrosive. As Sandler transitioned from television to film, the antagonism followed. Behind closed doors and within industry circles, Murray was said to be openly critical of Sandler's projects, labeling them as lazy, unserious, and damaging to the craft of comedy.
You have any reservation about that?
I was scared, yeah. And I was like, oh, I don't know, man. I don't like him very much.
How you doing, Howie? Hey, good Pesach. All right.
According to Sandler, he knew Murray didn't like him, but he didn't expect him to go as far as making destructive critiques shared publicly about him. They were comments that traveled through producers, writers, and decision-makers, quietly framing Sandler as someone who didn't deserve the success he was achieving. One particularly damaging incident came during an industry gathering where Sandler's work was being discussed in a room filled with influential voices. Murray reportedly reduced years of Sandler's effort to a joke, turning serious conversation into ridicule. Laughter followed, but Sandler wasn't there to defend himself. What hurt most wasn't that Murray disliked his films. Sandler could live with that. It was the destructive nature of the criticism, the way it seemed designed not to challenge him, but to undermine him. Coming from someone who had once redefined comedy himself, the hypocrisy was hard to ignore. Over time, Sandler started growing resentment for Murray. By the time Sandler had firmly established his legacy, he had already made a quiet vow. He wouldn't work with Bill Murray because his criticism could have torn him down at that young age. However, this next actor almost got Sandler blacklisted by fans. Number 6, Loren Anthony.
It was a sad one. People would be looking at me like, what are you doing? Why are you making us so upset? I'd be like, don't you want to cry with me?
In 2015, the internet went crazy about a sudden and highly publicized walkout on the set of Adam Sandler's Netflix film, The Ridiculous Six. Headlines moved fast, outrage moved faster, and before the story could settle, it had already been framed as another example of Hollywood disrespecting indigenous people. Approximately a dozen indigenous actors left the production, citing culturally insensitive jokes and stereotypical portrayals. At the center of the media storm stood Loren Anthony, whose name quickly became tied to the fallout. From Sandler's perspective, what hurt most wasn't the criticism itself, it was how coordinated it felt. He believed the situation could have been handled privately, internally, without spectacle. Instead, the walkout exploded into a global controversy almost instantly, complete with statements, interviews, and carefully timed outrage. To Sandler, it didn't look spontaneous. It looked orchestrated, and in his mind, Loren Anthony was the one pulling the strings, arranging the exit in a way that would guarantee maximum damage. Sandler had always defended his work as satire, insisting the film ultimately mocked racism rather than promoted it. He felt blindsided watching the narrative turn against him so aggressively, especially as his long-standing reputation for loyalty and generosity toward cast and crew was suddenly questioned.
It's a weird age, right? Now it's a new age. I don't know what the fuck I'm supposed to really talk about, what I'm supposed to be.
As the media painted him as careless and offensive, Sandler grew convinced that the walkout wasn't just about creative disagreement. It was about making him look bad, publicly and deliberately. To him, it felt like sabotage. The ruckus overshadowed the project entirely, reducing months of work to a single controversy. Sandler believed the media frenzy wasn't accidental. It was fueled, guided, and strategically escalated. From that moment on, trust was broken. Sandler blacklisted Loren as someone who weaponized the moment to control the narrative and embarrass him on a global stage. Whether that belief was fair or not, it hardened his bitterness for him into something permanent. Similarly, the next actor did something similar, but worse. Number 5, Jack Nicholson.
How much you make doing that? I said, I don't know, let me give it a shot. And so I used to go to, it was humiliating.
Jack Nicholson was one name Adam Sandler believed would never disappoint him. A legend, a symbol, someone whose presence alone could elevate any room. One time, Sandler organized an event and invited Jack to grace the event. He spoke Nicholson's name with certainty, assuring everyone involved that he would be there. It wasn't a casual promise, it was a guarantee that anchored, that got many excited about that event. As the day drew nearer, whispers began to circulate. Jack stopped taking his calls. Sandler brushed it off, confident that Nicholson would show up as promised. On the day of the event, he greeted guests with a smile, repeating the assurance that Jack would show up, holding the room together with optimism and trust. Then, time passed. Jack Nicholson never arrived. What followed was a quiet, suffocating embarrassment, the kind that doesn't explode, but sinks slowly into your chest. Sandler felt it immediately, the shift in energy, the unspoken questions, the glances exchanged between industry figures who had come specifically because of Nicholson's supposed attendance. His word, something he valued deeply, was suddenly in question. Later, the reason surfaced. Nicholson had bailed because the money wasn't worth his time. Sandler had staked his credibility on Nicholson's presence. He had vouched for him, and in doing so, he had unknowingly set himself up to look naive, even foolish, in front of his peers.
Basically shown before, during, after, stuff going wrong. It's not the perfect show.
The humiliation lingered long after the event ended. Sandler didn't confront Nicholson publicly. He didn't vent to the press. He simply absorbed the lesson quietly and held grudges against Jack. But if grudges had ranks, Sandler has a higher-ranked grudge against the next actor for trying to mess with his marriage. Number 4, Jessica Biel. Jessica Biel entered Adam Sandler's orbit at a time when his public image was built on stability, successful career, loyal friendships, and a marriage he fiercely protected from Hollywood noise. Their connection was professional, casual, and unremarkable on its own. What turned it into a problem wasn't reality, but perception. It began subtly, a few public appearances, comfortable banter during promotions, harmless moments frozen into photos and clips that tabloids love to overanalyze. Somewhere along the way, a narrative took shape, one that suggested something more than friendship. Entertainment blogs ran with it, speculating freely, blurring lines that didn't exist, and Jessica Biel's name became inseparable from the rumor. The story snowballed fast. Headlines hinted at chemistry, comment sections filled in the gaps with imagination. What should have been dismissed as nonsense instead gained momentum, fueled by repetition rather than proof. Sandler watched as a false storyline hardened into public belief, one repost at a time.
I bet being behind that fucking door,
dude,
and
you should have.
And your heart's pounding through your chest like, holy shit, it's happening right now.
Sandler shared how he felt really bad at home because the impact was real. Even when rumors are untrue, they have weight. Conversations changed. Tension crept in. Trust had to be reaffirmed in the face of constant outside noise. Sandler found himself defending something that never happened, explaining headlines he never asked for, carrying the burden of a narrative he didn't create. What frustrated him most, Jessica's unwillingness to clearly attempt to shut the rumors down decisively. No strong correction that could stop the speculation in its tracks. Sandler felt like being left exposed, while his personal life became public entertainment. The situation really messed with his mental heath. Sandler never forgot how Jessica's act had nearly destabilized something real, and never forgave her for that. As serious as that sounds, the next actor on this list would have been yet another hurdle to Sandler's career. Number 3, Robert De Niro.
Let them know, mark your turf. So I go, all right, fine. I'm terrified that I have to do this. I get to school.
Robert De Niro's presence on the set of The Family in 2013 was impossible to ignore. From the moment he walked in, the atmosphere changed. He wasn't just the star of the film, he was the gravity everything else revolved around. For Adam Sandler, who had built his career on collaboration, looseness, and creative breathing room, the experience felt suffocating and terrifying. De Niro was dominating in a way that went beyond professionalism. For younger or less confrontational actors, it was intimidating. For Sandler, it was disorienting. What made it worse was how deliberate it felt. De Niro didn't raise his voice or create chaos. His power was colder than that, a look that lingered too long, a pause that signaled disapproval, a correction delivered with extreme precision in front of the crew. Sandler found himself second-guessing instincts he had trusted for decades, adjusting his energy to avoid friction. On set, moments that should have been light became tense. Improvisation, something Sandler thrived on, was quietly discouraged. Deviations were met with visible impatience. De Niro's intensity dominated the rhythm of the production, turning each day into a test of endurance rather than creativity. There was one incident that stayed with Sandler. During a filming, De Niro reportedly shut down Sandler's request to get lunch before it could fully land, embarrassing him sharply in front of the director and crew.
Both are pretty unpleasant to see. But I went with cover in the front.
The room went silent. It wasn't just disagreement, it was a power move. Sandler felt reduced, reminded exactly where he stood in the hierarchy. The intimidation was constant, and that constancy wore him down. Sandler began to retreat, doing his job efficiently, but without joy. The set no longer felt like a place to explore, only a place to comply. By the time filming wrapped, Sandler carried a quiet resolve with him. He respected De Niro's legacy, but the experience left a bitter imprint in his heart. But not as much as the bitterness that was imprinted in his heart by this next actor. Number 2, Salma Hayek.
Over to my wife saying, "You have to watch them. That's not good, and I don't like that." And we'd have to say, you know.
Salma Hayek was someone Adam Sandler respected deeply, a peer, a powerhouse, and a woman whose voice carried weight in Hollywood conversations. That respect made the situation that followed especially uncomfortable, because it didn't attack his career directly. It went after his home. It began quietly, wrapped in concern rather than accusation. Comments framed as worries about exposure, questions posed as advice. Salma reportedly voiced discomfort about how often Sandler's wife appeared in his films alongside their children, suggesting that the line between family and work was being blurred in a way that could be harmful. On the surface, it sounded thoughtful. Beneath it, Sandler felt judgment. What made it worse was where those comments landed. They weren't directed at Adam first. They reached his wife. Subtle guilt crept into conversations, implications that she was benefiting too much from his platform, that their children were being pushed into the spotlight before they could choose for themselves. The suggestion wasn't just professional critique, it was moral pressure. According to Sandler, his family wasn't a Hollywood strategy. It was a safe space he intentionally built in an industry that had chewed people up for decades. Casting his wife and children wasn't about control or forcing a legacy. It was about trust, comfort, and protecting them within an environment he understood better than anyone else. But the guilt-tripping lingered, the idea that they were exploiting their kids, exposing them too early, molding them into something they might not want to be. It planted doubt where Sandler had once felt certainty. At home, it created conversations that never needed to exist. Defensive ones, explanatory ones, painful ones. What angered Sandler most was the hypocrisy. Hollywood had no shortage of parents who paraded their children through auditions, press tours, and brand deals. Yet his family, who worked together selectively, safely, and joyfully, were singled out. To him, it felt less like concern and more like judgment disguised as virtue. Sandler didn't really confront her. He didn't correct the narrative out loud. But internally, a boundary was drawn. His family was not a topic for debate, not a lesson, not a cautionary tale. From that point on, Sandler became unfriendly towards Salma, but the actors on his blacklist didn't end with Salma. Number 1, Peter Dante.
Just the other day, on the set. By the way, I just saw how I look. It's ridiculous.
On the set of the 2002 movie Mr. Deeds, a crew member, frustrated and careless, reportedly made a remark about Sandler that crossed the line from criticism into outright disrespect. It was the kind of comment meant to belittle, spoken with enough confidence to suggest the speaker didn't fear consequences. Sandler became aware of it later, not through confrontation, but through whispers. What he expected was simple support, a clear boundary, a signal from those around him that disrespect wouldn't be tolerated, especially from Peter Dante, someone who knew exactly how much Sandler valued loyalty on set. Instead, Sandler felt blindsided. Rather than shutting the behavior down, Peter was seen aligning himself with the crew member, downplaying the insult and framing it as harmless venting. The message that landed with Sandler was unmistakable. The insult wasn't serious enough to defend him over. That moment changed the energy between them. It wasn't about ego. Sandler had taken jokes and criticism his entire career. But this wasn't comedy, it was disrespect coming from below the line. In a workplace, he worked hard to keep supportive and collaborative. Peter's choice to side with the crew member felt like a public undermining, especially in an environment where leadership and unity mattered. What hurt most was the precedent it set. When disrespect goes unchecked, it spreads. Sandler began to feel the atmosphere change, subtle but real. And the person he expected to help reinforce those boundaries had chosen neutrality, or worse, opposition. Sandler never made a scene. He never confronted Peter loudly or turned the issue into a spectacle. But internally, he resented him. By the time Mr. Deeds wrapped, the relationship was no longer what it had been. Peter Dante was still around, still working, but the closeness was gone, and the only space left for him was amongst the actors Adam Sandler hated the most. Let's know your thoughts in the comments section. Subscribe to this channel for more videos like this, like and share.